always thought the family business was the heart of our legacy, a gift passed down through generations. On Sunday afternoons, my father would gather us around the long wooden table that had seen decades of family meetings and celebrations. It held the weight of our history between the polished grains and the worn edges, and when he spoke about the business, his passion pierced the air like a bright ray of sunlight. "This is more than work," he would say, eyes gleaming. "It's our inheritance, our duty." I soaked in every word, daydreaming of one day steering the ship he had built through storms and calms alike. But everything changed when my father made the decision to partner with his brother. My uncle, the charming yet cunning man whose very presence made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I remember feeling hopeful at first, thinking, perhaps he has changed. Family should always stick together, right? As months rolled by, though, the excitement faded into a pit at the bottom of my stomach. I could see the shadows creeping in, my father's dreams slowly disintegrated under the weight of my uncle's greed. "Give him a chance, Sophia," my father would often assure me during those difficult dinner conversations where I tried to bring up my concerns. "He is family. We owe him this opportunity." His voice always held a firmness that silenced me, and in those moments, I felt as powerless as a small bird trapped in a cage. The more my uncle swanned around like royalty, throwing lavish parties and buying extravagant gifts, the more I felt the sharp edges of betrayal cutting into our family walls. I could not ignore the way his presence loomed larger with each passing day. Every time we would meet in the conference room, his slick hair always immaculately styled, his hands always waving as if to dance around the scrutiny. "Trust me, brother," he would say, his smile wide and disarming. "These investments will pay off in spades." And somehow my father believed him. The way he nodded eagerly, eyes shining with hope, it twisted my insides like a knife. The business flourished on paper, but it was like a house of cards waiting to collapse. I held my breath watching our bank account dwindle, the way the numbers on the screen seemed to mock me. One evening, I mustered every ounce of courage to confront my father, my heart thudding wildly in my chest. "Dad, we need to talk about Uncle," I started, barely above a whisper. He glanced up from his laptop, annoyance etched across his forehead. "Not now, Sophia, I am busy." "Busy losing money?" I blurted out, feeling the heat flush to my cheeks. "It is not just business, it's family, and you are letting him take everything from us." "Sophia, stop it," he snapped, the disappointment in his voice cutting deeper than I anticipated. "You need to understand this is the way business works. I need to believe in him. He is my brother." I could see it then, the way his loyalty clouded his judgment, making him oblivious to the wreckage forming in his midst. Days turned into weeks, and the suffocating debt tightened its grip around our family like a vice. The number crept closer to a debilitating $200,000. I could feel the walls closing in, a relentless pressure suffocating my dreams. At night, I lay wide awake, staring at the dimly lit ceiling, the air thick with betrayal. Anxiety wrapped around my heart like a chain, keeping me awake, and all I could hear was the steady ticking of the clock, each tick laced with my uncertainty. What could I do? I felt trapped between familial loyalty and the desperate need to save my father before it was too late. I thought of the legacy, not just for myself but for him. The sacrifice, the hard work, it was all slipping through our fingers like sand. One frigid evening, I waited in the cold, biting wind outside our business. The parking lot was quiet, swallowed in darkness except for a flickering streetlight that cast long shadows across the pavement. I watched as my uncle pulled up in a sleek, silver car, his laugh rising above the honks and sirens of the street, echoing through the stillness. He stepped out, dusting off his tailored coat, oblivious to the growing tentacles of anger coiling around my heart. "Always the showman, huh?" I muttered under my breath, my stomach twisting into knots. I slipped behind a nearby tree, hiding while I imagined the confrontation I craved. He walked into the building, and I was torn between anger and fear. I could hear muffled laughter and clinking glasses through the glass door. I clenched my fists, feeling the adrenaline surge. This wasn't just business to me, it was personal. I needed a plan, a way to expose him for all his deception, a way to awaken my father from his blind loyalty. I could not let my uncle continue to drain our family legacy. As I stood there, I felt the weight of inheritance pressing down on my shoulders, heavier than I ever imagined. I was ready to dislodge the pieces of this corrupt puzzle, yet deep within, dread began to seep through my veins. What if I failed? What if this only pushed my father further away? I pushed those thoughts aside, pulling myself from the shadows. "I will not be powerless anymore," I vowed to myself, feeling the night chill wrap around me, hardening my resolve. My uncle was my nemesis now, but I had no intention of letting him win. I would expose the truth, even if it meant tearing apart the family ties that bound us. I could see the faintest glimmer of light in the distance, finally ready to take the first step toward reclaiming what was rightfully ours, and I would not falter again with each day. The situation felt increasingly dire. I sat in the dim light of the kitchen, watching my father at the table. His face was weathered, lines etched around his mouth like deep ravines. He stared blankly at a pile of bills, but the familiar furrow of his brow showed he remained oblivious to everything that was happening right under his nose. My uncle had his claws deep into my father's wallet, and I was the only one who seemed to sense the danger closing in. "Come on, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I could feel a knot tightening in my stomach, heavy like a stone. "We need to talk about Uncle Ryan. Things aren't going well with him. He's not the partner you think he is." My father looked up, his dark eyes narrowing as if I had just spoken in a foreign language. "What do you mean? Ryan has been working hard for us. Can't you see he's sacrificing so much to keep us afloat?" My heart sank. Why could he not see? "But Dad, he's been taking money from our accounts. Contractors are knocking on our door for payments we can't afford. He is on extravagant vacations while we are drowning in debt. You really think he's doing us a favor?" I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. My father flinched as if I had slapped him. He turned back to the bills, mumbling under his breath. I could sense the denial radiating off him like a thick fog. "That might be true, but he's family, Sophia. We need to trust him." Trust. The word echoed in my mind like a taunt, laced with bitterness. It was as if every time I uttered the truth, it fell upon deaf ears. My throat tightened and I gripped the edge of the table, feeling its coolness seep into my fingers, a stark contrast to my rising frustration. "Dad, family doesn't stab each other in the back. Family doesn't take our last savings and leave us with nothing. He's using you." Suddenly, I felt the heat of tears stinging the back of my eyes. I blinked hard, willing them back. I fought the urge to plead, to shake sense into him. Instead, I pushed my chair back and stormed out of the kitchen. The worn wood of the floor creaked beneath my footsteps, a protest against my anger. In my room, I sat on my bed and pulled out the pile of documents I had managed to gather over the past weeks. I spread them out like a frantic map of evidence. Each paper told a story of betrayal: contracts signed with questionable terms, withdrawal records from our account, and a list of business deals that had fallen apart, all while he was off sipping cocktails on some beach. I stared at it all, my heart racing with a mix of rage and despair. "Why can't you see this?" I whispered to myself in the dim light, the quietness of the room pressing in like a heavy blanket. I traced my finger over my uncle's bold, scrawled signature. "You have no idea what you have done to this family." Days turned into weeks, each one dragging on like a tireless gray cloud hanging over Crestwood. The arguments in our house intensified, spiraling into chaos. "We cannot afford to pay for that right now," my father would shout into the phone, desperation lacing his tone. The tension in the air felt sharp like glass, ready to cut through the silence that once filled our home with laughter. I could only watch as my uncle continued to maneuver. His disarming charm masked his darker intentions. Just last week, I had overheard him on the phone, laughing carelessly, the sound dropping like a bomb into my world. "We'll get it back next week. No need to worry," he had said, and I was left wondering at what cost. The stagnant weight of our situation pressed down harder on my heart one evening, becoming unbearable. My father sat in his armchair, staring blankly at the television, the glow flickering across his face. I tried one last time. "Dad, we need to talk about this again," I urged, my voice shaky yet determined. "Not now, Sophia," he snapped, his voice sharp and tired. I swallowed hard. "It is now or never." That was when he casually mentioned that he had allowed my uncle to take our family heirloom, the vintage car. My breath hitched as I realized what he was saying. "Dad, you cannot be serious. That car is worth around $75,000. You cannot allow him to take it as collateral for a business deal." The words hung in the air between us, suffocating me. I could see the flicker of confusion in his eyes, the momentary break from his delusion as he tried to grasp my fear. "It is just for a short time. It will come back to us." I could feel the threads of my dreams unraveling before me. My fingers clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms as I tried to hold back the surge of anger rising inside me. "When will it come back? When we have lost everything? When there is nothing left to save?" "Enough, Sophia," he shouted, his eyes wild now, reflecting a mix of frustration and hurt. "You need to trust your uncle. He's not doing this to hurt us." His words knocked the wind out of me, and I knew right then that I felt the edges of betrayal stab deeper than they ever had. The truth was that I felt unseen, lost to my father's need to uphold a facade. It was depressing and isolating, a feeling I never wanted to harbor. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away, angry at my own helplessness. That night, alone in my room, something snapped. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the documents that now seemed like a battle plan. My heart pounded as I let my thoughts spiral into dark fantasies of revenge, each scenario igniting a flame within me. How dare he? How could he betray us all and laugh while we suffered? A thirst for reckoning began to fill my heart, overshadowing the despair I once felt. I needed to reclaim what was ours, to expose the deceit that bled into the very fabric of our family. And it was time I took control of the situation, because I knew that leaving Uncle Ryan to his own devices could very well lead us to a disaster we might never recover from. The final threads of trust frayed completely, and with it, a new resolve formed in my chest. I would no longer remain silent. The flickering fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting an eerie glow on the stacks of files that loomed like tombstones in the shadowy corners of the office. It was late, and the stillness felt so heavy, it was as if I could practically feel the secrets weighing down the very air around me. I was hunched over a desk, the faint click of my fingernails against the keyboard echoing through the empty room as I sifted through endless spreadsheets, receipts, and account statements. My muscles ached from the strain, but determination powered me on. I was searching for something, anything, that could lift the fog of uncertainty that had been clouding my thoughts this past week. Then it happened. Beneath a crumpled pile of invoices, a snippet of paper caught my eye. The edges were crisp, as if it had been hidden away for a long time, just waiting for the right moment to be discovered. With a trembling hand, I pulled it out, misgivings flooding my mind as I turned it over. The familiar letters and numbers coalesced into something I had not anticipated. A hidden account statement revealing a staggering $150,000 had been siphoned from our family business. My breath caught in my throat, and I barely managed to swallow as the world began to tilt beneath my feet. I blinked hard. No, it can't be, I whispered to myself, biting down on my bottom lip until I tasted copper. My heart raced faster than I thought possible as I pieced together the puzzle of deceit. How could he, the very man I had once trusted, considered family, was robbing us blind right under our noses? My father remained blissfully ignorant, working late into the night as always, believing that everything was fine, that we were safe. But deep down I knew that facade was about to shatter like glass. I sank back into the chair, the weight of what I held in my hands pressing down on my chest. Every breath felt labored, heavy with impending revelation. My uncle, the one who had always offered kind words and reassuring pats on the shoulder whenever I felt uncertain, was the one leading us into ruin. I could almost feel the tendrils of rage curling in my gut, hot and threatening to consume me whole. As the realization fully dawned on me, the despair morphed into a fireball of determination. No, I muttered fiercely to myself, standing up abruptly to pace the floor. If my father cannot see this, then it's up to me. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling cold despite the oppressive heat of anger radiating through me. I will expose him. I will reclaim our legacy. I began to formulate a plan, every beat of my heart synchronizing with the thoughts racing through my mind. Who could I trust? I thought of my close friends, those who understood the stakes involved, who had seen my struggles and had stood beside me in my uncertainties. They would help me gather irrefutable proof of my uncle's wrongdoing. Clenching my fists, I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling over the screen as I scrolled through my contacts. Minutes later, the ringing stopped abruptly, swallowed by the stillness of the night. "Sophia," the voice came through, buoyant yet laced with concern. "Is everything okay? You sounded urgent." "I need your help," I replied, the weight of my words pressing heavily in the air between us, amplifying every heartbeat. Today I felt the surprise fluttering in the pit of my stomach like a trapped bird, desperate to escape. "I've discovered something, a huge betrayal. Can you come to the office?" "Betrayal? What do you mean?" The concerned tone rang clear, but all I could focus on was the mission ahead. "I found evidence. My uncle has been stealing from the business. A lot of money. I need you to help me figure this out." "I'll be there in 10, they said, their voice crackling with an intensity that electrified the air. As I paced back to the desk, I grabbed the account statement and stared at it again, reading the numbers as if they held the keys to unlock everything that had been stolen from us. My fingers tensed around the paper, channeling my frustration into a white-knuckled grip. Just then, the office door creaked open, and my friend walked in, their brow furrowed with worry. "What do we need to do?" they asked immediately, assessing my face, unsure and eager to help. There's no time to waste. I need you to dig through any old contracts, anything that could show how long this has been going on. And maybe see if you can find colleagues who might have noticed something amiss, I said, urgency propelling my every word. Got it, they replied, eyes fierce and bright. I'll check around tomorrow. No, it can't wait. I leaned over the desk, speaking in clipped sentences as ideas flowed. We need to start now. It's late, but I have access to the secure files. Everything we need is there. I need you to help me search for transfers, anything suspicious. Okay, I'm in, they agreed, shifting into work mode, excitement bubbling beneath their focus. Let's find out how deep this goes. Together, we combed through the mountain of digital files, screens flickering in the dim light, an atmosphere thick with determination. I glanced at my friend, their eyebrows furrowed as they scrolled through pages of numbers and transactions. I felt both a tightening coil of fear deep in my gut and a flame of anger burning at my core. Here, they said suddenly, pointing to a specific line in a ledger. This large transfer, it's never been mentioned in any meetings. What does this mean? That means it's not legitimate, I exclaimed, a swell of confidence washing over me. And it's the key to breaking my uncle's scheme wide open. We need more than just one transfer. We need proof of a pattern. This will not only shock my father but will completely dismantle my uncle's trust. As excitement surged within us, I understood this was only the beginning. I could practically taste the victory already, a bittersweet melody that sang both of revenge and the justice I craved for my family. So together, under the harsh fluorescent lights, revenging a betrayal and uncovering the truth would soon follow. The only drawback was that I knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. But that was a risk I was willing to take with my friends beside me. I felt a surge of strength as I meticulously documented every fraudulent transaction. Each nefarious lie my uncle had woven like a spider spinning its web, intricately and deceptively. The walls of my dimly lit bedroom felt like they were closing in, but it was here, amidst crumpled papers and the dim glow of a desk lamp, that I felt empowered for the first time. With each entry I wrote down, I could almost hear the rattling of chains loosening. The stale air, thick with tension, felt electric, buzzing with the energy of revelation. Do you think we have enough? I asked, trailing my fingers across a printout filled with numbers that once represented our family's dreams. I mean, with all this, we could really? Of course we have enough, one of my friends urged, her eyes sparkling with determination. This is solid. You have everything here. As I stared at the pages scattered around me, it was like unveiling layers of deceit that had been gathering dust in the shadows for far too long. Each piece of evidence was a reminder of what he had stolen from us, and I could feel my heart pounding in sync with the ticking clock, counting down to the moment justice would finally be served. Okay, let's get this done, I said, taking a breath. By the time we compiled a comprehensive report that outlined every missing dollar, a damning array of evidence against my uncle, it felt like I was assembling a castle of truth, a fortress to shield us from the past's betrayal. The spreadsheets filled with intricate detail on where the money had gone, along with emails that dripped with deceit, created a loud narrative that begged to be heard. My friends leaned over the papers, their expressions mixing concern and conviction. This is it, another friend said, her voice steady but her eyes wide with anxiety. We can't back down now. When we finally felt ready, nerves thrumming like a poorly tuned guitar string, we approached authorities who specialized in white-collar crimes. The office was cold and sterile, the bright overhead lights almost glaring as we stepped through the glass doors. I felt my palms sweating, anxiety tightening around my throat like a noose. Sophia, just remember, one of my friends whispered as we waited in the lobby. You're doing the right thing. I nodded, though internally I battled a whirlwind of emotions. Fear danced alongside exhilaration, their waltz a haunting reminder of what lay ahead. The moment we presented the report felt surreal, like stepping into a world I had only read about in crime novels. As the officer skimmed the report, I felt both small and massive, like an atom ready to explode with energy. This is quite a lot, he finally remarked, raising an eyebrow and glancing up at us. You did your homework. Can you do something with this? I asked, feeling my voice rise slightly, thick with emotion. It's all true, you have to believe us. He nodded, then picked up the phone. The sound of dialing was like a heartbeat echoing through the air. I watched as he spoke into the receiver, my heart racing. It felt like the walls around us were slowly cracking open, revealing the potential for justice and hopefully the end to our pain. As the day of my uncle's exposé approached, my nerves coiled tighter. When the news broke of his arrest, it felt like the world had shifted under my feet. My father, previously disinterested in my claims, was finally recognizing what I had been screaming about for months. The look on his face when he learned everything had been a farce was priceless. A visceral mix of disbelief and pain washed over him like a tidal wave. "How could he do this?" my father exclaimed, his voice a raw mixture of anguish and betrayal. "I told you." I pressed, feeling the swell of righteous anger rise within me. "I told you everything he did was a lie. He used our family to build his empire and sold us out." The house echoed with silence as he took it all in, the details unfolding before him like a dark tapestry. "But how? How did you know?" he finally asked, his voice trembling. I stepped closer, my own voice softer now, filled with the weight of realization. "I couldn't stand by while he ruined us, Dad. It wasn't just about the money, it was about our dignity, our future." The flicker of understanding sparked in my father's eyes, and for a brief moment, the sorrow felt lighter, almost as if justice was beginning to take root in his heart, too. Watching my uncle's empire crumble, once built on our family's dreams, was a moment of bittersweet satisfaction. It felt cathartic, as if I had shed a heavy cloak I had carried for far too long. The anger that had once blinded me now transformed into clarity, fueling my resolve as I watched my uncle's name tarnished, splashed across the headlines. As I opened the kitchen window to let in the crisp air, I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of freedom fill my lungs. "What's going to happen now?" one of my friends asked softly, their voice breaking the silence. I couldn't read my father's expression, but I saw the flicker of hope and resentment clash in his eyes. "We're going to stay strong," I replied, determination clawing at my insides. "We owe it to ourselves to start over, to rebuild. This is just the beginning." The chaos in my heart settled, transforming into the exhilarating excitement of reclaiming what had been lost. It was more than just revenge. It was a chance to restore our family's honor, to take back control over our lives. And, as the evening light bathed my room in golden hues, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next. I was ready for our family to breathe again. Justice was being served, and the feeling was intoxicating when the dust settled, my world transformed anew. The sharp crackle of chaos that had once dominated our family business had faded into a whisper, replaced by an uneasy calm that felt almost surreal. I stood in the office where it all began, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and memories. My uncle's face lingered in my mind, twisted in anger as he faced the prospect of legal consequences. A shiver ran down my spine as abandonment and betrayal swirled through my thoughts. "Can you believe it?" My father's voice broke through the silence, shaky yet sturdy, a strange blend echoing through the empty office. At that moment, he looked older, lines etched deeper into his face, but there was a newfound fire in his eyes. He thought he could escape it all, just run and hide behind his lies. I forced a nod, but inside my heart twisted. He thought he was invincible, Dad. He never saw the cracks forming beneath his feet. The betrayal had been so profound, a reckoning of character, ambition, and family ties that had turned to threads woven in distrust. "Sometimes I wish I could have seen the truth sooner," my father sighed, leaning heavily against the desk. The faded family photos on the wall watched us, reminding me of better days when laughter and trust filled this space. "I should have listened to you, all those times you tried to tell me. It's okay, Dad." I stepped closer, eager to ease the tension between us. "What matters is that we're here now, together. Together." He echoed the word, a hesitant smile emerging. "It feels good to say that again." The weight of honesty hung between us like a powerful spell. "Can we really rebuild?" I asked softly, uncertainty creeping into my voice. His expression hardened, yet I saw a glimmer of hope. "With our legacy tarnished, it will be hard, but we owe it to ourselves to try. He may have thought he was the one pulling the strings, but we are not his puppets. We are the Bennett family, and we will rise above this." I inhaled deeply, each breath filling me with determination. It's about time we reclaimed our name. I've spent far too long feeling trapped in someone else's deception. "Exactly," he agreed, the fire in his eyes igniting further. "Let us not dwell on resentment." We traversed forward, with clarity and resilience. A sense of relief washed over me as I gazed at my father. My heart swelled with gratitude. Watching my uncle's deceitful reign unravel was deeply satisfying, like watching a puppet string slip from their master's fingers to crash onto the floor. "Remember how he used to flaunt his power, how confident he was?" I chuckled bitterly, remembering all those evenings where he dictated our lives with a self-assured smirk plastered on his face. I never thought I'd see him in chains, so entrapped by his own greed. My father straightened, the hard lines of his expression softening. It's a bittersweet victory, isn't it? To see the man who once bulldozed over us now grappling with desperation. Bittersweet indeed, I mused, glancing out the large window that framed our office, the sun spilling warm light onto the pavement below. But this is our time to learn from it all. No more manipulation, no more lies. My father reached out to clasp my shoulder, the warmth of his grip grounding me. The family you want will not be built on the remains of his deceit. As I looked back at him, memories flooded my mind, the times we had sat back to back, slumped in the couch as if wrestling the world's weight. We had let our bond slip, buried beneath layers of complicity and unspoken words. But now, as the truth unfolded, hope began stitching us together again. Let's use this as our foundation, with the strength of trust. My voice was steadier now, and I felt the resolve surge through me. It's not just about what he took from us, it's about us coming together. We can do this, Dad said, a radiant spark igniting in his eyes. We will pick each other up instead of letting anything take us down. We will focus on growth as a family. In that moment, it felt like the chains of deception that had once bound me tightly began to crack and fall away. The shadows that had loomed felt powerless in our light. I can finally breathe, I whispered. It's like I've been carrying bricks all this time. I know the feeling, he said, a sympathetic understanding in his eyes. But just imagine what we can do together, Sophia. We can restore our family's integrity, brick by honest brick. The resolution swelled like a wave, promising rejuvenation. I glanced back at my reflection in the window, and I barely recognized the determined woman staring back at me. I felt free for the first time. If I allowed the past to hold me hostage, I would never experience this liberation. We'll write a new chapter, I declared, feeling bold and invigorated. One that honors what came before but doesn't dwell there. Our story continues, not as victims, but as victors. My father beamed, and I knew we stood on the threshold of something profound. Indeed, we shall. This is not an ending, but a grand new beginning. And as I turned my gaze to the door, anticipation bubbled in my chest. Life outside awaited us, an expanse filled with rebuilding and rediscovering the connections that mattered most. The echoes of my uncle's downfall reverberated in my mind, but they faded into the background as we took a collective step forward. My uncle, left to regret his decisions in solitary confinement, became a ghost of our past, one that we could choose to discard or learn from. So even though the family business had been tarnished, we would reclaim our legacy. As I walked hand in hand with my father into the future, I realized sometimes revenge does not seek punishment. It serves as a catalyst for growth and unity. In our shared resilience, we found the scars of betrayal transformed into bonds of trust, making us stronger than before. I felt hope, vibrant, alive, and unyielding, and knew that we would rise together.